Over time, it seems to become harder and harder to build the level of wealth that can change not only your own life, but your kids' life. And we trade our precious human time and energy for dollars that can literally be created out of nothing. There is a better way, I think, and that's using a unique form of leverage called doing something that no one else is willing to do. In this case, it's called hard work. Hard and smart work and keeping an open mind will likely build the level of wealth that you need to sustain your retirement and get your kids the start that you desperately want to give them. So today I have Luke Kemeys, the man behind the mic with the Next Advisory podcast and the Keep the Change podcast. I've been fortunate enough to know Luke now for over a year, I guess. I'm picking his brains around how to build wealth through small business in New Zealand at the moment. I hope you enjoy. If you do, please give us a like, subscribe on the way through. Let's get started. Okay, welcome everybody to the Everyday Investor podcast. Today, Luke Kemeys. How are you, Luke?
Very well, mate. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. And before we get started, I know you grew up in Dannevirke,
Yes.
and I know where that is. I know the
Nice.
distance roughly from Dannevirke to the place where it's the longest place name in New Zealand. So that's pretty cool. Um, I know you from the Keep the Change podcast, but more recently the Next Advisory podcast. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your journey and what you do in a typical day?
I'm a fellow chartered accountant now, and that's where the next advisory piece comes into it. And we look after about 130 clients in terms of their accounting throughout the year. But we also do a lot of workshops for non-clients. We do business planning one-off, and they'll stay with their accounting, know your numbers, really helping them dig in and figure out what's going on in this business. And that's a $1 million business, which I'm sure we'll touch on some stats later. And that's built from ground up. So Phil and I, my business partner, went out on our own about 8 years ago, and no clients, and have built that to where we are today. So yeah, service-based business. That's effectively my 9 to 5. I would say I've got a streak of entrepreneurship in me, and I'm always wanting to build stuff, and I can't really sit still, and that might be undiagnosed ADHD, whatever it is, but I normally pour that into things that I enjoy. And one thing that I enjoy is trying to help people. And I was looking at my skill set thinking, okay, but what else can I be doing with this? How can I give some everyday financial information to people, lessons that I've had, getting into credit card debt, all that sort of stuff, through to what am I currently doing with money? What am I seeing with clients? What am I learning about money? What are the sayings that aren't actually real? Which ones are holding us back? And basically started writing a weekly money mail for people to learn something about money during lockdown. So it was 5 years ago. And we're at week number 272 this Friday.
For Keep
Yeah,
the Change?
yeah, for Money Mail. So that was the first version of Keep the Change.
I see.
Yeah, and Keep the Change, the name came from, I would go to this cafe as I was starting to make a bit more money, and go further down my path, and I'd go to the gym, I'd go to this cafe, and I'd get eggs on toast with salmon, and it'd be $19, and I'd have a $20 note, and I'd say keep the change. And I was trying to teach myself abundance, because I think Kiwi culture is like scarcity, and there's not much out there, and if you're doing well, then I can't be, because you've taken it from me. And like, that's, I think, a big part of what's wrong with the country. But anyway, that was where the name came from. And I wonder if I can teach 100,000 people how to be more in control of their finance, their money, their mindset around money, and then surely that increases the wealth of the nation. So that's the goal that I've been aiming towards.
Yeah.
And, I guess through this time I'm learning about philosophical things, and having North Stars and stuff like that you start learning when you get into business.
Yeah.
And yeah, today, 5 years into that project, I give myself 10 years to try and help 100,000 people. I could argue maybe we've already done it, if we start using the multiplier effect, but have reach about 50,000 Kiwis every week pretty comfortably via audio, written, and social media.
I'm assuming you probably would have went through some sort of process where you were ruminating on that core idea on what is my vision with Keep the Change, right?
Yeah.
Was there a person, was there a big influencer in your life? Was it just like a beam of light just struck you in the cafe as you left? What
Yeah.
was it that kind of made you think, I'm going to do this thing?
Well, when I go home and speak with my parents, we'd often end up arguing about, well, not arguing, but having these like discussions about what's wrong with New Zealand, and often it would come back to there's no financial education for the everyday person. And then one day my stepmom was sort of like, what are you going to do about it? And I kind of just tucked that up my sleeve and was like, okay, I'll get there eventually. And then in lockdown, I had all this spare time, and people started asking me questions because I was an accountant. What's happening with this? What about this? What do you think about this? And like, well, why don't I just start writing to people each week and like see what how this goes down? And I thought all it does is it teaches me like resilience. It teaches me consistency. Can I actually stick to this every week? It's going to give me a boatload of content to be able to repurpose. Like I already knew the social media game, and I thought I have like a mantra, and I've learned this somewhere along the lines of if you help enough people, like there's a saying, I think it's back in the day, it was like if you want to be a millionaire, help a million people. And so now, because money's being ruined, it's probably like if you want to be a millionaire, you need to help a billion people. Well, sorry, no, the other way, you need to help like 100,000 people. So I thought, well, if I just help people and do good in the world, then I'll get mine, and it'll come back. And so part of it as well is like if you were to think of, okay, who's the accountant in New Zealand? No one can really name anyone because we don't really have people. And part of it also, another big part was that when we hit lockdown, I'm seeing behind the data, live data, daily reconciled transactions of how a business is going. I'm talking to them. I'll flick on the news at night, like, hey, what's going on? Today we're going to hear from Professor from the Auckland Uni. I'm like, what are they going to know? Oh, tomorrow we're going to hear from the economist. Seriously? I'm like, where are the accountants? And I had a conversation with our industry body. I'm like, that should be us. Like, why are the media not coming to us? And so I started getting a little bit closer to trying to solve that with the media. But anyway, like it's normally we gravitate to economists and professors and lecturers to get like an insight into the business.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just that accountants haven't branded ourselves well enough to be that authority where they go, well, this is stupid. Why don't we go speak to an accountant? However, in that time, like the last decade, we've now got live financial data, so it makes a lot more sense. Historically, it'd be anecdotally an accountant would say like, oh, this is what my clients are telling me. Now we can go in and be like, oh, well, we've seen, like as an example, this last year, December, January, incredibly slow for a lot of business owners. People taking holidays, revenue drops, people still want to be paid their wages, just squeezes. We started educating clients on you've only got 11 months to do 12 months of business because New Zealand shuts down for a part of December and January. People don't make decisions. They, might do that in the new year. You can't get a contract signed off, all that sort of stuff. So we can see what's happening in the data and then see what's a pattern and then like educate clients plus through the podcast, like, hey, we're seeing this. This is what you need to do. Or our clients tried this. This is working.
Right.
So the whole thing, I guess once it's going in the right direction, just kind of snowballs and magnifies itself.
Flywheel, isn't it?
Yeah.
So obviously you would be using Xero or something similar to that.
Yeah.
And so when you look at your clients in the accounting practice, you would see all that data and almost aggregate it, right?
Yes.
Because it's kind of like a diversified portfolio of small businesses in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then you could run a filter through that and see these different things.
Yeah.
So like even today, would you be able to say to me, hey, we're definitely in recession or we're not, or there's a recovery based on what you can see?
Yeah. It's tricky because our client base skews aspirational.
Yeah. Younger, right?
Yeah, younger.
Sub 40.
And they'll like push hard.
Yeah.
I'm talking, I'll get a tradie saying, oh, it's pretty slow out there. I'll have a tradie come in and they say, oh, I've got a LinkedIn strategy and I'm doing this, I'm posting this, and I'm reaching out to this person. If they don't call back, I follow them up 2 weeks later. Oh, this was the last time I called them. I'm like, you're going to kill it. And we've got a lot of outlier clients. So sometimes it can be tricky.
Sure.
But a lot of them are like a bit concerned and worried, and like a lot of them are working really hard and they're not necessarily getting the same results that they would have in prior years with the amount of effort that they're putting in. So I would not be surprised if we're back in recession as of recording this in July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it certainly seems to be consistent because I'm knee deep in the household, right?
Yeah.
That's my space. It's not necessarily the business. In my space represents an income stream. Usually in a lot of households, there'll be a business income stream. And so I'm kind of like today, I'm trying to follow that out to try and get a feel for what's happening with that source, the genesis of the business.
Yes.
But I'm in the household and it very much feels like things are tight. And it not just with the self-employed income, but with the employed income, a lot of anxiety around job stability.
Yes.
And that's leading to a contraction in sentiment because there's so much funk in the trunk, like so much negativity out there, which we can, on one side, we could say, just try harder and get over it and push through it. On the other side, it's also like, well, you have to acknowledge that that's a changing, shifting environment. And it just takes time for us to adapt to that environment. So when you think about your clients, you say they skew more towards the aspirational side. Is that because of their age and stage? Is it because they've been steeped in your content that you've been putting out for the last little while?
Yeah, part of it's probably the stage of their journey. So a lot of them are newer, like in that first 10 years of their business, and they are like our why is life-changing advice for aspirational business owners. So basically, we're trying to find aspirational business owners and be like, oh, if we just teach, if we plug in this teaching, this is what your business could do. And then, so we're almost like reshaping their mind and their education, and then they run a better business, and then the financial data follows.
That's good.
Yeah, and like a lot of people find us through the content, they resonate with it, and then they learn some stuff, they get some value, and they go, oh, I'm stuck now. Can you boys help me? Or, hey, got a tax surprise. You guys bang on about that. Okay, it's time to change accountants. And then, yeah, we're then wrapping, because I think then when they become a client too, they're then more in tune to tune into our content, take it more seriously because they're paying us as well. They'll try things, they'll tell us how it's going, they'll come to workshops, they'll put their hand up, they'll, oh, I heard you say on a podcast about this. Like, could we do that? Oh, actually, yeah, that could work for you. So the relationship's probably a lot tighter. However, as well, it's 130 businesses, not a big four or something that's got tens of thousands, and basically they just need to get sets of accounts done, get them out the door, to get the fees done, to get them off the whip ledger, to, get them through to the next year.
And that's on purpose, right? Are you trying to build a massive accounting practice, or are
No.
you trying to keep it kind of values driven and
Yeah.
simpler?
So trying to build something where we enjoy the work that we're doing. So ideally we get through the compliance stuff that we're regulated to do. That frees us up to then actually dig into that accurate data, understand what's going on up here for them, understand what's happening in the numbers, and understand why the numbers become the output. Because the numbers, all they are is an output of the actions that the business owner is taking. So, as an example, if they don't get education in the construction space about prices going up, how to understand markup and margin. Oh, it's only a couple of percent, won't matter. Well, actually, here's what that does, over 12 months. If that margin had have been protected, there's another $30,000 of profit in your business. Oh, wow. Would you rather like that 30 grand? Yeah. Okay. Well, we better fix that.
I guess when they're doing their apprentice, say a plumber or a builder or candlestick maker, whatever, you're not really thinking about some of these best practices. It's not like it's taught in an apprenticeship. Well, maybe it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, it's not. Like, we're one of the easiest countries to start a business, which is great, but we don't then educate people. So often in that space, you'll get, well, in every space, I'm normally dealing with people that are like, I got into business because I'm a this, but I don't know the number side of it. And now I realize I want to do this for a longer period of time. I'm going to invest some money into learning that side. So, I'll take people through a 90-day action plan. And what I say to them is, at the end of this, basically you'll pay 7 grand with us, and you'll have a business degree that you didn't get. And I'll condense it down into your industry with the stuff that you need to do. And basically, if I don't make you your money back, or you can't see you're going to make your money back, I'll just keep working with you, because I'm like, this keeps working. So there's something here. And as long as they take the actions and do the learning, they start crushing it. And then then they may become a client, or when I say like crushing it, they start getting closer to their goals. So it might be the first hire. It might even be the second. It might be actually, no, we're going to do some marketing. It might be, we actually need to let someone go. They're bringing down the whole production of the whole business. Okay, that's scary. Who do we need to speak to? So like, I've got to challenge them on what they're doing and why, to then start getting them closer to where they really actually want to be. But the journey they then go on, like a lot of them end up becoming top taxpayers, and they're earning over 180K.
Awesome. Yeah, we want that. Yeah.
And so I've got to then be like, oh, wow, okay, we've gone from sorting pricing to hiring this person. How do we get more work in? How do we make that consistent? How do we say no to stuff we don't want to do? To then like, okay, you need to pay this tax, but that's not going to be enough. Like, make sure you put a bit more aside. And it's life changing, but that goes back to the
no
why.
one ever told me that stuff, right? When I first started out, even though I was in the money space, it was like, that whole provisional tax thing totally caught me off guard. How to manage cash flow, real simple things. Learned that towards the tail end of my business, when it was kind of like, it's useful around the edges, but man, it would have been so much more powerful. And ultimately, the education that you're putting out there helps people to be more profitable, more productive. More tax gets paid.
Yeah.
We grow our country.
Yes.
You're building wealth. It's awesome. So, one of the big things that I wanted to have a chat to you about is, I guess, over the last little while, in my mind, I've been kind of trying to pivot in my mind around how I view probably the biggest asset class for a lot of New Zealanders and a lot of Australians and a lot of people in the West. Really, is property, right?
Yeah.
We love property, and in New Zealand in particular, it seems to be the conduit by which new credit creation occurs. So it's critical that property values continually go up. Otherwise, we kind of have a systemic breakdown in the banking system. We don't have that crush. Regardless of whether that's right or wrong, I'm sure we have some views on that. It is what it is. And to get my head through this, I've kind of been thinking, well, would I sell my properties at the moment? Would I ditch my own investment properties and invest elsewhere? And so it's kind of like been a bit of an awkward questioning time, because it's a terrible time to be selling property, in my view, in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important just to be honest with where the future of that is. And it kind of ties into, how do you scale a business if you don't have property, because access to funding is really hard. So what I want to ask you is, traditionally, how do most businesses scale if they don't have property?
I'll take it a step back. Why do people want property? They won't admit this, but it's because they want lazy wealth. They don't want to have to do the work. They want to log in and see, oh, homes.co.nz said my house is worth more. I got a valuer to come around. They said it's worth more. Went back to the bank, got some money. Kids are off to private school. I'm on holiday. I can get the cool car, all 0% interest-free solar thing. I've got a Tesla now and some panels. And they've got to hold on. It's like a religion, I've got to hold on to that. That's the way to build wealth. And look, I completely get that we taught, a generation that, and that's worked for, the last 40 years. But if you want to build a business, you got to build it. And, people think they're building wealth with property. No, they're just waiting for it to happen. I mean, this is different to the people who, go and property flip and add value and figure out, okay, how do I turn this from 300 to 400 and increase the rent and stuff? That's a different subsection of people, right? But I think the Kiwi mindset has been oh, you just buy property, either you're owner occupied or then get a rental with the lazy wealth. And then you carry on down that path and look at you, well done, you've done so well. Well,
slow motion speculation.
Yeah,
What it really is.
yeah. And as long as you protect your income in a job, you could then got safe life, safe wealth, and safe income, and you play it safe. But business doesn't let you do that. You got to get in there and you got to hunt, and you've got to figure out, okay, who's my ideal client? How am I going to get in front of them? How many hours am I willing to do? Why am I doing this? When you start earning good money, it's going to suck, losing 33 cents and 39 cents in every dollar. So are you going to push hard when you know that, I'll go and do this consult, I'm actually getting 60% of it, not the whole thing. And, so that's, I guess, the first bit to that answer. But you can still access finance in New Zealand. The thing is, because we are so down the property path, then we don't, think about, okay, who's got that? I did a podcast the other day with Mahesh, who's was one of the first employees of Canva. He received equity in that business. He's, let's say, set for life. He's come back to New Zealand and is trying to find 10 of our next billion-dollar founders and educate them, get them going. And that's just a project that he'll work on in his life. Then he's on to the political side of things and having a go at that and running for national, I believe. But, the connections that he have and the people that are looking to invest into things, I just think we don't actually know how to knock the door down and see if the money's there. But also, I think if we then stick to the property piece, people have got wealthy through property. So, if we keep business really simple, all businesses are solving a problem. So then we go next door to our wealthy neighbors and we say, would you like me to clean your car? Yes, please, because I don't want to do it. Therefore, they're paying for convenience. You do a good job. Hey, is there anybody else that that would like me to clean their car? Well, actually, Janice over there, or my mate, blah, blah, blah. You take the profit from that and you build it up, you build it up, you build it up. And then you've got some capital and you start making bigger plays, and it's no different to how we've grown Next Advisory. You record some audio podcasts and you buy the $1,200 worth of podcast equipment. This is working. Let's get a camera. Okay, that's working. Let's run some ads on it. Get it a bit further. Right? Yeah. Okay, this is working. Let's get a $50,000 podcast studio. But that's funding a business out of working capital because if you don't have access to finance, but there is asset finance in New Zealand against vehicles and equipment and whatnot. And then, of course, if you do have equity in your property, you can borrow against that. And it's a lot cheaper. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, they don't have it. But I think they jump to this I want to have that business, that someone's worked on for 10 years.
Right.
Why don't we just learn some business skills in this phase and how to actually transact and make money and what business even is. And then, okay, I actually kind of like this and maybe I am cut out for this. And then we scale it up. And if you can prove to a person with finance or person with money that you've got what it takes, you'll hear a lot of American people talk about investing, and they're like, I invest in the operator. Because you can see, okay, if an operator knows what they're doing and is passionate about their thing, like the thing that they actually are doing, then they'll probably be profitable. Therefore, it's less risk when you invest into them. I often just say this to clients as well, and especially in an economy like this, it's like, who's got your money? And I think if you want to start a business and you're going, well, I can't because I don't have any money, it's the wrong thought anyway. You want to start with a piece of paper and go, okay, who's got it? Might be an uncle, might be a grandparent, it might be a parents. If it means that much to you, well, like put your foot on the gas and make sure you don't lose their money. Like only you know if you've got that in you. But it's not just like, oh, I want to do this, therefore my uncle should give me this money, and who cares if I lose it? That's not going to cut it, right?
Yeah, different vibe. So do you think that the banks, though, 'cause I've seen quite a few posts around this, especially recently, like banks should be lending to businesses and not just those that have property. What's your view on that? Should banks be more supportive of small businesses?
I think so, because I saw a good example the other day from another podcast, and the lads were talking about how they borrowed 5 million for the residential property portfolio, half an hour, piece of piss. Borrowed wanted a $50,000 overdraft, days and days, weeks, like paperwork. Oh, show us this and whatnot. Seriously, I got a client at the moment. They do well. They're profitable. They've got very minimal debt on their property. They're a top tax rate. They've got demand. They push hard, and they're like they're a 1%er effectively in the business space. They go to a bank. I want to borrow 250,000 to bring in a piece of equipment that there aren't many of these in New Zealand yet. But here's what people are paying for it already. This can add to my service line. All it's going to do, like the payback period is actually only like 18 months if all of it goes back, and they don't really like having debt, so they will pay it back quickly. Yeah. Oh, great, no worries, 13.95%. Oh, but if you give us your house as security, 5.95. Like what? So that person, because they've got property, gets a rate that's 50% cheaper. So of course, but that's just the stage, I guess, that we're at, where then those people who do have property, you go, well, all safe as houses and all the stuff that we've learned, like of course they're going to lend against that. And the fact that we even say safe as houses should make us think, why are houses protected? What is that? Where does that saying even come from?
Yeah.
Why are houses safe? Because they're not. Because a tornado rips through them every night on the news, like somewhere in the world, and floods can bowl them over and whatnot. So they're actually not that safe. So why are we protecting housing? And then you start going down those rabbit holes, right, and learning more about finance and banks and protection. But so I can see why the banks do it, and it's easy and it's safe and whatnot. But yeah, it does seem like we're at a period now where the property investors seem to be quite quiet. There's a bit of pressure on the banks. There's flat housing for the last 4 years hasn't really grown. If we look at it adjusted for like real figures in terms of inflation and whatnot, maybe even longer. So this whole kind of, it always goes up. Maybe that's not there, and people are questioning, oh, okay, what is this? And actually, anecdotally, but we saw a wave of people, especially when the interest deductibility was at that like 50%, going, I might sell my rental and we might buy a business. So corporate C-suiters or good incomes, and they go, this isn't for me anymore. We're going to take some chips off of the table and we're going to have a crack at business. That's a big transition to think you know how to run a business and buying an established one, and not doing it over emotionally where you then overcommit to it, to then actually have you got the chops to run it.
So it's all about the incentive structures, I guess. And if we think about these institutions that are effectively, let's call them parasites, banks, because we are the host cell, they are the parasite. If they don't thrive, we don't thrive, because they're integrated too much into our society and in our business, in our economy, in our tax system, in our government. It really is properly fused. So if you kill it, you'll kill the host. Is it not going to work anymore, or will it keep going? And part of me thinks, it's time to ditch property, because there's definitely a rising tide of newer people, millennials and beyond, who do not want to play the game and be the exit liquidity of baby boomers, right?
Yeah.
That's one side of it. The other side, it's systemically important that banks continue to work, otherwise everything just falls apart.
Yeah.
So where do you sit on this? Like, is property a good idea, or is it time to ditch it?
Sheesh. I actually think about this stuff too. And I think that we were at at the moment with property, it's almost like it's broken and that it's not coming back. But, that's such a risky thought process with when you really understand, okay, if you need to juice an economy. Read something the other day and I thought I need to talk about this under the Keep the Change umbrella to like help people understand how credit happens. And it's that, less people are taking out these 0 to 1% green loans. But, I think about it in my context, if people are taking out that credit because the banks are willing to lend it, then they go and get the solar, they get the Tesla. My electrician client does better. Maybe they do more coaching with me. Maybe I can charge more. Maybe I pick up another client. So I could selfishly go, I want property to like keep going up and so that debt creation keeps happening because I'm going to get even wealthier. Like it's good for me and I'll transact more. But my two things that I come back to is there's 71% of business owners in New Zealand with no staff. How many of those people actually want to have a staff member but don't have the education or don't know how to scale and don't know what the opportunity is that they could have? How many people are in a job right now because they weren't taught how to build a business or do something that they want to, but we said, you better get a property, you better do it quickly, and now they're stuck and they're actually miserable and we've got high levels of anxiety, depression, all these things. And how many of us have not been honest that we're leading a life we don't even want, but society and success was a house and now I'm trapped because of my mortgage and I can't go back because we don't like going back. And then thirdly, there's $220 billion in term deposits, right? There's, I think, 200 billion, I might have that wrong, but in transaction accounts, there's a stack load of cash as well. Why? Every week do I get sent an example with somebody saying, I went into my local Facebook group and I'm a tradie or whatever, and I posted this and I got some work. How is that possible in a recession, in a 3-year recession, if there's no money out there, if the whole thing's cooked? I think people lack the skills to figure out that you've got the money, how do I get it off you? And I think what's happened in the background that we're not talking enough about is that the aging demographic have accumulated all the wealth and they actually don't want some of it. They do want you to come clean their house. They do want to go to a travel agent and you can sort my trip. I don't want to do it. I'm not learning another tech thing. They want you to clean their car, paint their house, protect it. They're willing to spend that money. But we're sitting there being like, no jobs out there at the moment, man. It's just tough. Like you don't understand. So if these people had these skills, what does the economy look like? And I guess I remind myself, like, I'm here for those people that actually just need a little bit of education and the link between you've actually got everything it takes, you just don't know. I'll give you a bit of courage and hopefully some ways to make sure you get it right. And then bang, you're off on your journey. You might hire one person, you might hire two, you might not hire at all. You might blow up, the biggest company New Zealand's ever seen over the next 40 years. And that's who I'm here for, because these people that say, oh, it doesn't work and whatnot, they go, well, not everyone can run a business. Well, not everyone can, be an employee. So are you not thankful for the employer? Because that's kind of weird,
That's right, yeah.
But we don't have that convo. We lean towards the like, oh, businesses rip everyone off and, not everyone can do that. Not everyone wants to do that. Yeah, because we encourage everyone to get wealthy lazily without having to do the work via property.
Good answer.
Hope so. It'll wind a few people up.
That will. And that's good, because I think we have not because we ask not.
Yeah.
And you can't just sit there and wait for that generation, the boomers, to die and then give it to their kids, who probably will blow it anyway on stuff that isn't productive either, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want something better, you have to make it happen. And what better way, if it's not going to be property, than business? In fact, like you really should be building your income stream, or you should be building your business before you build your home anyway, right?
Yeah,
That's a principle that I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. So thinking about the baby boomers, then let's just stay on them, because it's fun to go after these boomers, right? As long as I'm in the middle as Gen X, kind of just dodging and ducking, diving here. But there is a lot of wealth tied up in there, and there's a lot of businesses tied up within that generation. I think it's something like 2/3 of over 50-year-olds.
Yeah, one in two business owners are over the age of 50.
Right.
Yeah. And so the OECD average, or Asia Pacific region, about 28%. So we over-index by a lot.
By quite a bit.
Yeah.
How prepared is that generation to transfer ownership, equity, whatever, into the next generation?
I would say poorly, just like we're all probably poorly prepared for retirement in general. A few things in here. So older business owners, they're like, I don't want to introduce tech. I don't want to build a database. We're not doing that marketing. We don't. So then a younger person comes along and goes, whoa, I can see a lot of opportunity in here because you've got a database of 6,000 people. You've never emailed them. We could be uploading that to Facebook, running ads to them, doing a lookalike audience. We could be offering this to them as well. And they can see a different world and they've got that energy. There's some data that came out recently, and I can't remember the stats, but at a very high level, like Next Advisory, we did a podcast called like Why is New Zealand So Shit at Business? And we went through the stats from it. But basically, like as business owners get older, the performance lags, and we're like right at the back of the queue compared to 11 other countries in the survey. Because I think, people probably like running out of energy. I can't be bothered. Also, do I want to bust my ass in business when I've got capital, or do I want to get another rental and just watch it drift up and I'm not going to get capital gains tax
And
on that?
we're humans, right? We're going to choose the easiest path and the less mental energy.
Yeah.
That's natural. And especially if you're at that age range, you are naturally,
Yes.
we're all going to die one day, right? So you're not going to be going 100% until you're dead. So that's normal. But why do you think New Zealand lags behind the rest?
Well, two things, like property, that's easy and it has worked. So then, well, why would you do it when it's hard? Like, why would you do something that's hard when you've got this that's easy? Yeah. And then, secondly, like the tall poppy stuff and the lack of education. Like we don't even have, you watch the One News, which probably a lot of the baby boomers watch. Like, where's the business stories? It's normally a negative story about, they're, ripping people off, or this happened, or this one's gone under. And it's like, I thought they might one day. And, and then it's like international stories, like Elon's let go of this many people. Oh yeah, he's a piece of, And so I think we need more stories and like role modeling of like, whoa, look at this. And there was a bit recently about Halter, for instance. And I think if we just told more stories of business owners, then people might go like, oh, well, actually, they're no different to me. I could be doing that. So I do think we have like a little bit of that tall poppy piece. I got out of the country, went to America to like see how different it is over there. It's a game. Talking to a guy over there and he's like, I'm at the end of my career, so I'm just buying up businesses now. I'm like, sorry, what? I'm like, man, most people in New Zealand would be sell this thing and cruise at the beach. He's like, what? That'd be boring. He's like, no, we've only got a small business, 150 staff. I'm like, 150 staff? I'm like, that ain't a small business, man. 97% of businesses in New Zealand have less than 20 people. And he's like, oh, what? He's like, well, what are they doing? Why aren't they hiring? I'm like, we're trying to tell these Americans in front of us about like tall poppy, and they're like, what is that? And then we're explaining, they're like, but why would you do that to each other? I'm like, that's a good question, man. I don't know. We just do. And they're like, I don't really understand. And I'm like, you don't need to understand it. But admittedly, like they've got their own problems, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the point about the retirement, of these business owners, they're either not going to maximize the sale value, or the other piece is that if we're not building equity through property, which is a bit scary because that's what's happening, then who is the exit liquidity, to use your words, right? Like, I can't go to the bank and go, hey, can I borrow against my property to buy into my, my boss's business? Or your partner might go like, well, we've just got to 300 grand worth of equity. We're not putting all of that, on the line. So it's going to be fascinating to watch that. I think some will get closed down. Some will get purchased under value. Some business owners will get a fright that their business isn't worth what they think it is. And some of them will get a dose of energy into them and get put on steroids because the new buyer will be able to see the opportunity that the current buyer doesn't have the energy for and just doesn't get. And just to give you a very quick story, I was at a house or farm of a rich lister, and this person, everything that they do, they see as scale in a factory. And they were taking us for a tour around the farm. They're like, every paddock's identical. Because why would it not be? Oh, we brought the neighbor's farm and we did the same thing to theirs. I'm like, wow, man. I'm like, your mind is just different, but everything is just like scale the same. If it's the same, it's easier. Simplify, bang. Anyway, showing us these little cottages. We got these from Wanganui. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And they're like, yeah. Rang the business owner and said, how many of these do you make a year? And I think, it was like 30. It's like, why don't I buy half the business and we'll do 300, And I think that people will take they're a rich lister. Of course, that's why they're a rich lister, because all they see is scale and like, this is great, this works, let's blow it up. And I think there's some of those people like coming through New Zealand at the moment, and they will, be able to mentor. They will, like Mahesh, for example. There's the bloke Bowen who built Marketplace for Facebook. There's some very talented Kiwi people around New Zealand. We win them back over to come home based on the amazing lifestyle and the country that we actually have. Where does that mentorship and that education lead to? I'm looking forward to that.
You hopeful?
Yeah, for sure. Because as much as it's tight at the moment, let's think, okay, KiwiSaver continues to compound. Here's a good story on that. You got Stan Henry, who lives in Australia, builds up his superannuation Australia, moves back to New Zealand, and he's like, I've always wanted to build a business, so I'm going to build one. And I'm like, why are you going so hard? And he's like, well, I used to manage hundreds of people in hotels. So like, why not? I know how to manage people. So he's trying to build the attention seeker out to like 300 people or something. He's hired 40 people in the last 5 years. And he said to me, well, my retirement's sorted. So I can't really fail because I've got such a big lump in my superannuation from Australia. If I just compound that to 65, I'm still going to be sweet. So even if this blows up, like I'm all good. And that's the power, I think. A lot of us we don't want to admit it, but we're broke. We don't have many reserves. We don't have many resources. So we've got to be like, I've got to hold on to the ones that I do have and I can't take any risk. When KiwiSaver starts getting bigger and we got kids coming through and they're 28 and they've got 100,000, 150 stacked in KiwiSaver because it's been compounding from 15, imagine how different they're going to, see the world if they don't go, oh, let's interrupt the compounding and put it all into a property.
Yeah. And I think there does have to be like a bit of a come to Jesus moment where we kind of realize the state of play as to where we're at and the attitudes and the mindsets that have got us to where we're at. And if you think about this next generation, like especially if you keep on doing what you're doing and you're helping change the mindsets of the next wave of people, a lot of those people will buy these businesses from the boomers. They'll inject a bit of AI in there. They'll put in some of their ambition in there and their longevity and their different mindset. And hopefully turn things around eventually, right? But at the moment, who are the type of people that are buying the businesses that the boomers are selling?
I believe demand outstrips supply like massively at the moment.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of transacting going on and a lot of people looking to buy. So I think it's people who have, got the capital or they've got a lot of equity in their property and they've gone through that piece and realized like, oh, okay, I could buy one of these. I've still got 20 years to go in life, or I'm ready for a change. I've done this chapter of my life. So normally they've got, good equity in their property that they've just built up, over time and by paying it down. So arguably like that's the other good side of property if we move them over there and they're ready to have a crack. And yeah, I would say, okay, I'm trying to find a good agent to get on the Keep the Change podcast to learn more about, okay, like who is doing this transacting and what are you guys seeing out there as well? But from what I read, there's a fair bit going on.
And in terms of how the transition happens of ownership, let's say somebody comes along, they're the right fit for a business. Can you talk me through some of the ways that people are getting funding? You alluded to the fact, like forget the housing bit and whether or not you can get funding for it from the bank. And you mentioned maybe there is business types of funding to get to a certain extent expensive. Are there other ways to fund the acquisition or the transfer of ownership in a business?
Yeah, so capital's got to come from somewhere, right? So often we think of the bank, but some people are using, inheritance or family lending or a gift because the baby boomers have gotten wealthy and they're like, well, we'd rather see what you do with this whilst you're alive. That's becoming a bit of a common narrative, we'd rather see you make use of this money. And then like cash flow lending. So basically, right, you might have some of that, but then you might say to the bank, well, we still want to borrow some from you. And this business, based on the cash flow projections, like it does drop out good money. It can afford to pay the salaries and my salary if I'm the business owner, plus pay the debt back. They may be willing to fund some of that. They might fund some of the equipment and take security over that. They might fund some of the stock or show you the different options. And I think like the banks actually have a number of different products. We Kiwi people probably just don't speak to our banks enough to see what types of finance. Sure. So even you see this in the e-commerce space where people just don't understand about the finance solutions to finance stock before they actually get it into the country to then go and sell it and the cash cycle there. So a bit of that and then a bit of vendor finance. Now, vendor finance is where the vendor is effectively like leaving some of their cash in the business and you've got to pay them back over time. I think we'll see a big wave of that and a lot more education about that because the baby boomers may realize that not everybody has the the means to buy, so maybe they have to vendor finance it, or it might be somebody that they already trust within the business and they want to get them to become a business owner, and slowly they buy shares off of the business owner and the business owner cashes out. There are, like, as you can imagine, just think about, if we keep it simple and go back to property, imagine doing that in the property space. You probably want to sell to the person who can just buy it, right? But that's not always the case with business, because actually maybe we trust this person, maybe this person's going to do something we don't like with the business. So I think we will see a wave of that, but you need a very good lawyer to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
For the vendor finance transaction.
Yeah,
Correct,
because
yeah.
as you can imagine, like, you lose a good contract and then there's a finger pointing game going on of like, wow, this business isn't worth what I paid for it now. I didn't know that they were going to leave when they found out that you're out of here, and things can go sour pretty quickly.
Yeah, I've seen a few transactions like that recently, and that's one of the reasons why I was keen that you mentioned that, because I think the whole vendor finance thing is a great way to create like a synthetic form of income for the exiting shareholder, right? So
Yeah,
they don't have
yeah.
to pay tax on that money, right? Well, they do on the interest component of the vendor finance if the
Yeah,
if,
yeah.
if the vendor of the business is receiving it, but
If
it
structured well, typically a tax-free sale. Yeah, yeah. There's no
yeah,
capital gains tax, so
which is pretty cool, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because if you're thinking about who that owner of the business is, especially if they're a boomer, or let's say they're 65 years old,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they maybe not know what to do with the money. Well, let's instantaneously invest in debt in the form of vendor finance. And now you're getting an income stream for 5 to 7 years, and with the
Yeah.
rest, do a partial thing. And that's cool. How do you see AI in particular enhancing regular businesses and like helping grow wealth through business?
Yeah. I guess there's two ways to look at it, right? And one is that it's going to take all these jobs and then we're going to need a UBI. Like, I don't know, do we need to do a test on UBI? We already have it in New Zealand for under 65, over 65s, and we know that it's not panning out well and we probably can't afford it. So I don't know. I feel like New Zealand's already done the experiment, but that's the brain is like fear. Wow, what's going to happen? Take my job. But I go past a car park all the time and there's a booth there and someone used to sit in there and they used to lift the lever. Well, what are they doing now? And do you care about them? Didn't think so. So technology constantly moves. My first job in accounting, I would type in every transaction off of the paper statement from National Bank. What a waste of time. Like, I went and studied for 4 years to do that. Seriously. Now I can log in, bang, okay, through zero. Great, run a profit and loss. Oh, what's happening to this business? Okay, I need to get on the phone to them. Better send them an email. Oh, they've already got it. They've texted me. Everything's like lightning quick. And I think that's we're just gonna have more of that. We're gonna have more productivity, but again, we've got to have the education in the hands of the right people. And it's a bit like I bang on about before. Well, there's part of the reason that people aren't out there transacting and making more money is because they don't know how to. If we don't teach people how to use AI, easy for me to say like, oh, all should be sweet because I'll be willing to do the work and the learning. But a lot of people just aren't, and they, with everything in life, right? And that's that. If you get more of those people and they get left further behind, like, I guess that is dangerous and worrying to think about.
Totally.
But we're a highly unproductive country and we're highly slow. We've got 100k speed limits and then we go 80 and we don't even notice we're going 80. It's the weekend. There's a T3 lane. It says Monday to Friday. I better not use it. What are we doing? So I think AI is just going to speed up people that are already going fast and put time back in your day and increase productive output and creative output for those types of people. And it'll further leave behind people who like don't want to learn the world that we're moving into. So that's my overarching
Sure.
thesis on it.
So it'll kind of like separate the haves and the have-nots, but the haves will be those that are willing to, well, they're being open-minded, right? They're implementing these things, and
Yeah.
they will get more, and those that don't will probably get less.
Well, those who, don't want to use it, but the technology, whatever it is, will just spend their money on it. So we've already seen this with Uber Eats. Luke can use a payment gateway with Stripe bolted into Kartra to run a workshop for 140 people at the start of the year at $100 a go, 14 grand, and make that in an hour and have a 50-50 split with a mental performance coach and have people tuning in on Zoom, and we cash 7 grand each profit. Well, someone who doesn't want to do that is like, oh, sweet, I can use Uber Eats and I can get this in 7 minutes, and oh, I can put my buy now, pay later into it. They're not sitting there going, man, this probably isn't a good idea. I can't afford this, and I'm using financial technology that someone's put in my hands. So that probably is just going to continue to magnify, right?
Somebody said on the podcast, which is humans are naturally gifted at using tools. And if you don't use tools, you will be left behind. You won't evolve like everybody else. I'm sure there's a place where that gets a bit dystopian, though, where the technology is inside of us.
Yeah.
But until that happens,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of wealth that could be created by doing that.
Well, I have a Tesla, right? So I go to the airport and I chuck that thing in basically auto drive, and I don't do this, but I could see a world where I could literally be working on my phone and be more productive, even have my laptop out and doing stuff. What an unbelievable advancement in technology. The crazy thing, I think, is like all these people work on making cars safer, and then we keep the speed limit 100 Ks and we're like so scared. Mike and I did a podcast on this recently. I believe that, in the pod, I had this epiphany. Maybe we hate speed because we've been marketed to in New Zealand a big traffic campaign that speed kills.
Yeah,
So
totally.
then,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, anything outside of like, the traffic world, we expect speed. If our Uber's late, oh, what have they done? They're taking a wrong turn. Oh, my Uber Eats is taking ages. But we don't then go, why am I going so slow? What am I doing? But I do then wonder, like, does Luke really need to be like on his laptop whilst getting driven to the airport? And then I logged on I got domestic Wi-Fi flying to Wellington to go speak at a conference the other day. So then I'm pounding out work during that. I'm like, man, are we just going to work 24/7 with the tools? Because it's
Some will. Some will choose to, right?
Well, yeah, true. Yeah. And I guess that's I drive into Auckland on a Friday and I'm like, man, like, no wonder I'm doing well. Like the roads are quiet. And then I might go on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I come from pretty humble beginnings, and like I got taught, if you want something, you got to work hard for it. I then learned as I got older, actually, mate, you should probably do smart things. But I like working because I've been taught to like it and to be grateful for it. So then I combine hard work with smart work. And I think, like, if I can't make it here and do well, then like it's my fault. I'm doing this wrong because I can see it all.
Yeah.
And I think we already have a 4-day work week for a lot of parts of the economy where now people stay at home and they, do their admin and they do some stuff with the kids and whatnot, like amazing. But then they still complain about how, they're still going to work so hard. And it's like, are we actually working as hard as we used to? And then you've got people who are like just going for it. And I can't keep up with a lot of people. And you think, whoa, like, no wonder they're doing well. It's just reps and hours and work that they're willing to do.
Right.
But I think we lost that narrative because you can't say to someone, oh, like, work hard and you'll get ahead. Because it's like, oh,
especially my generation.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's
no. Yeah, people get offended by that, but it's like, man, it works if you're aiming it in the right direction.
Yeah. So where would you direct people then to kind of get on track? Like, I know there's a ton of stuff that you put out there, so definitely throw that in the mix. But what can you point people to help them to kind of take control of this and get educated?
Yeah. My number one principle teaching is that I come from a business world, right? And if you log on and you want to buy shares in a New Zealand company or American company or whatever, what do they need? They need a financial set of statements, And when we go and borrow money from the bank, they'll say, what's your financial position? And then we fill it out and we do it. For me, that's a scorecard in being non-emotional of how you're going. So I teach people, you should know what you've got coming in, what you've got going out. Just start with the next pay period. Okay, then you've got your mind on your money. Now we need a list of assets. We want cash, we want KiwiSaver, we want property values, we want crypto, car, vehicle. Then we want debts, which are liabilities, and then we want, debts, blah, blah, blah. That assets minus liabilities gives us our equity. That's what a business is doing at any given time with live data, right? And that's what the bank's looking at. So I think if it's good enough for business, which is the biggest wealth builder in the world, why is it not good enough for us individually? Of course it is. So then we do that every month and we build a consistent pattern of trying to track our net worth increasing. We set goals as part of that. 30 days, right? Less usage of buy now, pay later. Less usage of the credit card. Can I be somebody who doesn't use a credit card? 6-month goal, clear the credit card, chop it up, back half of the 12 months, I'm not going to use it. Who cares about the points? I can go and make more money than the points will even give me anyway. Changing behaviors. Okay, I'm going the mortgage calculator. If I paid off an extra $50 a fortnight, how much does that save me on my mortgage? Great. What about 500? Oh, you can't make another $500. That's ridiculous. Can't with that thinking, but maybe I can in 2 years' time. So like trying to pull your future state and seeing where you're going and pull it forward and go, how can I do this faster? So that was my second money mail, May or June 2020, where if you do this process and I do it, like I've gone from negative equity, credit card debt, doing all the dumb shit to now, millions, well, not millions, but over $1 million worth of assets, including my business value, but a lot of liquid too, zero debt. And I still use the same spreadsheet, and it's ugly, and people are like, oh, have you got an app, man? No, I don't, because I do this because I'll actually do it. But you might want to use pen and paper. Like, you've got to find what works for you. So set a calendar reminder every month to then look at your money forward and then back as well. And then basically, where are my assets, liabilities? Do that for 6 months. You'll be so much further down the path than you realize. And then you'll start like your brain will start looking for things like, oh, I found Darcy's podcast now. I started listening to this. Oh, I did wonder, like, why do I have 2 buy now, pay later providers? Where did this come from? Oh, they both send me 2 emails a week trying to encourage me to spend. Like, no wonder I don't have any money left over. And everything, you start to get more in control of it. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff that we're talking about with Keep the Change. And then I've got a broad range of like, this person's a 17-year-old kid and they've signed their first lease and they're cleaning cars and they're making 35 grand a month and whatnot. Trying to plant seeds to encourage people. But what I've come to learn through this journey as well is that like, it's only really 5% of people that will want to do this stuff. Most people will fall off the bandwagon because it's actually psychological and behavioral. And a lot of it, we don't actually want to do because it's too hard. And I'm sure you see this, throughout your career where it's like, if you just did this, everything would be fine, but they just don't know how to get themselves to do that. So Keep the Change. If you're more into the business side of things, the Next Advisory, What's Next podcast, there's 500 episodes of both. So there's a stack of learning there.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to ask some of our clients that are spending tens of thousands of dollars with us, can I record this? And then we'll block out some of the personal stuff and then, pump it,
Yeah.
Because we're doing well. Like, we'll keep getting ours. If not, like, I'm not doing a good enough job. And, if people can like learn a little bit to get further down the path and save themselves from some mistakes, well, business owners have got better employees. We've got a better economy, we've got a better country, and we're doing our bit to get this thing back on track, as the politicians would say.
Yeah, that's right. Build back better, man.
Yeah.
One more question as we finish up. One more question, because if I'm sitting in front of Luke Kemeys, I got to take full advantage of this, right? So my teenager is starting a lawn mowing business.
Yes.
What's the best advice that you can give him?
Yeah, wicked. Okay. Back yourself. And so find the people who do want it. And remember that money exchanges hands when value exceeds price. So if you go next door and knock on the door and Shelley says yes, she's happy for you to do that for $75. Great, you do a good job. Remember that $75 isn't the most you can get paid, because Barry next door, he's got to sell his house the next day and he sees that you're mowing the lawns. He's like, hey, can you come and do that right now for me? I was actually going to go on TikTok. Well, not anymore. I'll give you $200. Whoa, $200 to mow the lawns takes 45 minutes. Then don't listen to these punishers out there. Oh, it's a low wage economy and you don't understand what it's like on minimum wage. Get your ass off minimum wage. Like, stay away from it. It's a minimum wage for a reason, So we're so much more valuable than we realize. So how can we find people who value what we're doing and then sell to them? If that person transacts with you, then say to them, hey, is there anybody so you're trying to go through their network now that you think would like me to mow the lawns for you as well? And then as you get a rhythm, okay, what else is going on at this house? Hey, before I leave, I did notice you've got all those leaves over there. Would you like me to clean those up for you for an extra $15? I call this like a margin builder. How can you bolt on a little bit more margin? And, we see this at Foot Locker. You buy the sneakers and before you leave, they're like, you need the water in the can. You're like, do I? Yeah, it's $20 and it's probably 20 cents cost for them. That's building the margin. So what else could you do for these people? And then get some flyers and print those off as well. And if you're doing really good work in the neighborhood, take those flyers, and the flyer basically says, hey, like I'm in the area doing this. That might be why some of your neighbors' gardens are looking so good. or lawns are looking so good.
That's good.
Bang, sign it, phone number. Like if you need me, you text me. Both. So plant 10 of those, you've just planted another 10 seeds. You've asked the person who you could transact with next, and you're constantly looking for more problems that the person has that you could solve that you can then swap money for. So you swap your skill for their money. We don't swap time for money. That's what Kiwi, teaching is. Time for money. No, wrong. Value, skills. And that should give you like enough work to get the snowball rolling where you then start testing pricing, and you rinse and repeat. And then you've got to, through that time whilst you're mowing the lawns and whatnot, educate yourself. Like use the time, make it more productive, learn something, listen to a podcast from Jim's Mowing, okay, about how to grow the mowing business. I think Mike and I did one on $100,000 mowing.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So he can listen to that.
Perfect.
He'll
Yeah.
find his first 6 figures, and then you're on the path. And all of a sudden, you're in the top tax bracket, and you're reading online people complaining about how hard life is, and you're thinking, "Wow, like, it's easy. Like what happened? What are they talking about?"
Yeah, that's so good. He's going to love that bit, Luke.
Brilliant.
Thank
No
you very
worries.
much. No, I really appreciate that. Keep doing the good things.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.